I need you to buy $30,000 worth of illegal moonshine in your home on camera.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raelyn Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
I'm still smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright from the Raelyn Nelson Band, back with another fantastic and ridiculous and unnecessary intro.
You're doing much better with saying unnecessary.
Better.
Good job. Also, feel really dumb because there's lots of people in the museum right now. So, a Killer Beaz.
Let's just get into it.
What do your friends call you?
Beaz.
Beaz?
My name is Truett Beasley, and they call me Beaz. You know how they'll abbreviate your last name?
Yeah.
They call me Beaz since I was little bitty. And when I used to play blues guitar back in Jackson, Mississippi in old-timey days, before you were even born, I would go out in front of whatever little band and do my little guitar solo, and the people that knew me would go, "That was Killer Beaz." And the people that didn't know me thought they were saying that was Killer Beaz. So then every little band I was in for a while, it was with Killer Beaz on guitar.
Yeah.
So when I started stand-up back in 82, I just kept that stage name, Killer Beaz, Best Buzz in Town, which has served me incredibly well because people remember the name.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'll hear from folks all over the country. Man, we saw a comedian the other day at so-and-so place. He was great. And I go, cool, man. Who is it? I probably know him. And they can't remember the name. Mm-hmm. But the Killer Beaz, they're like, I wonder who they are.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an oddball, different thing. But it just came from my nickname being Beaz when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And I've heard other comedians talk about, the name is one thing, but your voice too. It's, it stands out. So
Meaning.
Well, I'm from the South too, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
That Southern accent.
Which is one of the reasons way back in old-timey days when I left Jackson, Mississippi, where I started my career, when I left there to go to a showbiz town, all the comedians were going to New York or Los Angeles. And I have a cousin who's a screenplay writer who called me, goes, dude, he goes, don't go to L.A. or New York. You're going to get judged by your accent. You're going to be pushed to the back of the line behind people that don't have the same chops or the same gift. He said, go to Nashville. And it hadn't even dawned on me. He goes, dude, they make movies in Nashville. There's national TV in Nashville. There's record deals. Hendrix recorded in Nashville. So I came to Nashville, and that's where I popped. So I did over 100 appearances on TNN back in the day with Crook and Chase and all those folks, and a bunch of stuff on CMT. So Nashville was the perfect place for me because in part of the accent.
Yeah.
So it really...
We can relate to that. And plus, it's just so nice to listen to a Southern accent. You could listen to a Southern accent talk all day, or I could.
Of course.
It's charming and...
Charming, that's a good word. Let's use that one.
And also, you can use that, and I have many times, when you get into the Northeast, they're a sucker for a Southern accent. They might think you're stupid, but you can work them. It just made me laugh about Bill Clinton when he got in. I was like, I've known that guy forever, and people were just smitten by the Southern accent and charm. Like, he's a used car salesman.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, man. And when I'm in other lands, as I call it, I will push that accent a little bit more sometimes because you can see the reaction. Yeah. And, it's like us hearing an English accent, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So I have used that, and I am unapologetic.
Of course, yeah. And there's not a whole lot of people doing it. But we should...
Yeah, we need to back up a little bit. Okay, you're in Jackson, Mississippi. That's where you're from, right?
Correct.
And what is the first music you remember loving? I know you're a musician, but...
Well, when I was a kid, the first thing I remember about music is my sister and I jumping up and down on the bed listening to a song called Secret Agent Man.
Oh, yeah.
Who did that song?
God, I can't remember now.
Yeah, back in old-timey days. But that is the first music, the first song that is in my memory banks. So
That's a good one, man.
Yeah,
Good guitar
yeah.
riff in there, the
Yeah.
kind of surf guitar thing going on.
yeah, so and I have some great old memories. I remember the first time. I've been funny since I was a little bitty baby.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time that I ever touched someone by being funny. Get this, I lived in Kosciuszko, Mississippi as a toddler in a funeral home. My dad was a funeral director and an embalmer, and we lived upstairs in this funeral home, and I had the run of the place. I can remember getting yelled at by the secretary, "Truett Jr., we're trying to bury somebody in here. Quit shooting that cap gun." And so I lived at the funeral home, and I remember as a toddler, this is the earliest memories in my cranium, I saw people come and go from our home that were sad every day. And I had no concept of life and death or funerals, but I saw people every single day that were sad. And so I learned when I was a little bitty toddler, just teeny little, that I could do silly little cute stuff, and the crying people would stop crying and come over and talk to me. And the picture, and smile. And the picture in my head was a lady who, to me at the time, seemed 10 feet tall, and she would lean over and talk to me and smiled. So I think that memory meant so much and touched me so deeply as a little bitty child that feeds my compulsion to this day to make people around me laugh and smile.
Yeah.
That's
I
crazy.
don't-
You must have been born with it, because that's not the most humorous place to grow up in. You know what I mean?
I do have a gift, and I feel a responsibility to God for giving me that gift. And to this day, I don't do as well around stoic people, because I think every day we should get up and try to exude the hope and the joy from the day God gave us until at least 10:30 or 11, where we know
Till
it's
real
going to
life
suck
kicks in,
like
yeah.
yesterday. But I just feel like that's how we should conduct ourselves. You know, we I don't care if your day's going bad, fake it. We set examples for people when we don't want to. When we are unaware, somebody watches you do something. They watch you not put the cart in the little thing at the parking lot at the grocery store. They see you get irate at someone who was just giving you the news at the higher ups, and their company told you to give them. I mean, just all those things. People see us, even when they don't even know who you are, but they see a person, each of us, act a certain way in every single circumstance. There's very few things we do that are totally without anybody else witnessing it. You know, road rage, cutting somebody off, flipping on the bird, whatever. You know, we make a mark on people's lives, and we all need to be aware of that and conduct ourselves like we're aware of that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I come
love
from
that.
a family like that at every funeral I've ever been into, family members, eventually it turns into raucous laughter. I mean, you get through the sad thing and you sit around, and that's the best. And it's not anything our family's ever talked about. It's just what happens. And you go from sad, you're still
talking
sad.
about it.
Huh?
You're talking about
Well,
it.
that's true. I'm talking about them. But you go from sad to laughing at the most sad things, just because what else are you going to do? You know,
Right, you know, and I think that's another gift God gives us, is to be able, if we'll become aware, to change our mood and our attitude.
Yeah.
So,
And you can do it.
yep.
So how'd
yep.
you get into playing guitar?
Love guitar playing. The instant that I decided I wanted to play guitar was the first note to the solo of the live version of Machine Gun from the Jimi Hendrix Band of Gypsy albums.
Okay.
A big, long, sustained note that lasts, seems like 30 freaking seconds, with a roto vibe, little
Yep.
woo woo going in the background. My hearing is so weird. I've never been able to understand lyrics well. And so I've always looked for and connected with the emotional content of the
Okay.
actual music played. And lead guitar players emote such great feel and depth.
The good ones do.
The good one, yeah. Yeah.
We live in Nashville. There's a
They
lot
do-
of lead guitar players
Dude,
here.
I'm telling you, your waiter at Cracker Barrel's a virtuoso.
It's true. I try
Yeah.
and tell people that everywhere. I'm like, I don't care where you go. There's more musical talent packed in Nashville than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah,
There just is.
and all kinds of talent, and that's one of the things you learn when you come to Nashville is you get over yourself because there's a million people
Mm-hmm.
waiting in line who are probably way better than you.
Oh yeah, I heard a publisher once say, "This is Nashville. Nobody sent for you."
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Dope words,
Yeah.
as they say.
Exactly.
But that's what made me want to play guitar. I'm not a good musician. You know, I'm not I can't compose music. I have a hard time hearing licks and being able to copy them. So I do lots of improvisation
Right.
when I play. But I'm strictly just try to be a lead guitar player. I saw B.B. King play one time,
Yeah.
and his band played, and he just sang. And then when it was time to kill a solo, then he played his guitar. And I went, well, you know, I'd hire somebody to play rhythm if I needed to.
Right.
But I'm much better at stand-up than I am at guitar playing.
What was the transition of that? You said in 1982 was the first time you did stand-up comedy, but what
Correct.
made
When
you?
did you start
well,
playing
you
in a
said
band,
you were
like-
when you were a toddler.
Yeah.
What was the first time
I
you did
was
comedy?
funny
but-
all through school, wittiest and
Class
all
clown,
that kind
that
of stuff.
thing.
Correct. And then I was played in like garage bands,
Yeah.
around town, and just loved to play, but have been funny and blessed with a quick wit. And I read a lot. I'm a good wordsmith, and something that musicians and comedians, all your performance art people, what we have in common is we are communicators.
Yeah.
It's just a different medium that we communicate in, whether it's painting, dance, music, comedy, So that's what I have in common with you guys and with the performers. So that's a neat thing. But I was working in a music store, learning how to do truss rod adjustments. I can do a setup on a guitar.
Oh, I should have brought mine.
I can do that. I can't do electronics.
Right.
I'm very sloppy trying to solder and
Soldering,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
That's
But
the rub.
I can do. Matter of fact, I had to do the neck tilt on my new G&L.
No, you
had to
can't-
put a shim in
You
it.
oh, really?
Yeah. So anyway, what'd you ask me?
Oh,
So I'm
how did
working
you-
in a music store, and the house band from a club called the Quarter Note in the French Quarter Shopping Center in Jackson, Mississippi, came into the store, and they go, Kenny, the guy that runs the place, wants a comedian. You should go do it. And people had told me that for years and years and years. You should be a comedian. But I lived in Jackson, Mississippi, and that opportunity wasn't there. That's one of the things that you have to watch out for when your kids are growing up is don't limit the possibilities.
Yeah.
Way back in those days, it was, what do you want to do for a living? And it was either doctor, lawyer, policeman, fireman.
Yeah.
They were like 6 or 8
Warehouse
different
worker,
things.
Teacher.
lawnmower.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which one of those? I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to do any of those.
Right.
There's something out there I want to do, but I don't know what it is. I don't want to say, yeah, I want to be a job painting a rocket when I could have been the guy riding in it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I was undecided, did not have a career path, yet I already had a lifestyle path of making people laugh and smile. So the house band comes in, and Kenny needs a comedian. You should do that. So I went and saw the guy and booked it. Did 2 nights in a row, 20 minutes a set. Had
Whoa.
never been on stage.
Oh,
Did
my
you have
God.
any material, or did you just crowd work like
Zero
crazy?
material. Did not know. I did material off of old Steve Martin albums, who remains to this day my favorite comedian
Yeah.
I love
because
Steve Martin.
I love silly.
Yeah.
I love levity. I don't like a preachy comedian. I don't like you're doing this wrong. I don't like political comedy. I like silly. I like relief for people who want to get away from their problems
Yeah.
for that hour.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
And Steve Martin was
Right.
smart silly. You know, it wasn't goofy, but he was smart.
Correct. And I was also a big Gallagher fan.
Oh, yeah.
Because I liked the surprise of what that next prop was. So I made a bunch of props. I was creative at making my props and stuff. And the music store I worked at had a production company, so I had access to pyro.
Whoa, here we go.
I've
No
still
way.
got, at my home now in Mobile, Alabama, I've still got some 30 and 40-year-old little bottles of slow sparkle powder and just all these little flash powders. But I would make props that would blow up and stuff like that. So, but then someone ruined it for me. When I finally got on the road, one of the headliners goes, "People don't like working with prop acts." And it scared me.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so I just stuck with spoken word, which I would dare to say is the hardest art form out there is spoken word.
I would agree.
You know,
Yeah.
people have to listen. They'll request their favorite song and they'll sit and talk to each other while it's being played. Man, I love this part. But in spoken word, they have to listen and see that movie that you try to make play in their head with the way you wordsmith it in your timing and your delivery. So it's a hard art form. But anyway, so that
and
was
if you
my,
bomb, you're up there bombing by yourself too.
Yeah.
You don't have
Yeah.
a team behind you. You can't turn up or just
correct.
ignore it.
And if you're not doing well, the audience senses that. And they go through discomfort as well. I mean, there
It
is
is brutal
nothing,
watching somebody bomb.
There's nothing sadder or at least more awkward than watching somebody trying to do something that isn't working for them. So
By themselves on a
so-
stage.
Right. And all the new kids always ask me, "Dudes, what does it take?" I go, "It takes getting your heart broken 1,000 times." I go, "That's exactly what it is. If you're going to make a living or be on stage, you've got to have scar tissue. Because what we perform, we write it ourselves and we think and expect in our heart that this is going to be worthy of that audience. And when it isn't, whether it's you just didn't deliver it right, or it was a stupid premise to
Right.
start with, or whatever, it's a personal thing to you because that's your baby. You're not covering a song somebody else did.
Yeah, I know,
This
yeah.
is something that you believe is true and real and is going to work with people. And when it doesn't, it kills you.
Yeah.
And the audience knows that and they sense it. I tell the people all the time, the young guys, I go, "Look," I go, "here's what the art form is. Not letting the audience know that you're wigging." I go, "That is the art form because when you're on stage, as much fun as we look like and act like we're having, we're multitasking and we're going, do not screw this up. Here comes that change. Do not screw that up. Don't drop your guitar."
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
crap, should have used strap locks. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, so it's can be gut-wrenchingly terrifying on stage. And part of developing our skill level is to not show that.
Well, it's kind of the same thing with music. You got to be ready to
yeah,
hear no all of the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
No, I'm trying to
anytime
do
on
this, and
stage,
everybody's
right.
telling you no.
Yeah,
And you have to
so-
just be able to suck that up and either be delusional enough or confident enough to go, they're wrong. I know what
Also,
I'm doing.
I don't want to watch somebody as a comedian or a musician or a singer who doesn't have confidence. You know, you
Correct.
want that person to have that there. So even if they are bombing, you know,
Yeah, well,
Confidence will get you through it.
I've sang songs that I've written, just me and my ukulele or me and my guitar, and the ones that JB and I've written together, they love, and then one that it was just me, it's like, and you get that like, oh god, maybe I'm a shitty songwriter or whatever, but it didn't stop me from trying it again the next night, Still,
Right,
still
and-
kind of the same.
Right,
thing,
and
but-
that is exactly the same thing. We have to have the conviction and the guts to know that, okay, I just need to get better at doing that particular thing. And that is so much what will give us confidence is knowing we've made it through those tough times, because that scar tissue makes your heart stronger.
Yeah.
And everybody has to go through it. That's the sad part.
Yeah.
It takes years to get the seasoning that it takes to perform, and it is such little minute little details that a seasoned performer has that a newbie does not have, and they make so much difference in how that audience perceives what you're doing.
And you also get some experience on when stuff goes wrong, knowing how to deal with it, like breaking a string or whatever. When your first gig ever, you freak out, whatever. You do it. You figure out how. All right, I'm going to do some crowd work while so and so's changed the string. I would imagine the same thing with comedy. You know,
correctly. Your 100th broken string, you know how to deal with it.
Exactly.
You know,
cable's bad. Whatever. We'll figure that out.
Yeah. But the first time, or the first several times, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, the
crowd's
it's a
looking,
disaster
you're just
to you.
scrambling around and can't get anything
which
done
makes
because you're
it
so freaked
worse
out.
because you're wigging.
Exactly.
You know, and I've seen who was that fiddle player from Louisiana, a Cajun. And I did some appearances way back on CMT with him. Sammy, and it wasn't Kershaw, it was Sammy somebody.
No.
But I saw him doing a show one time where he broke a string he needed, and he sat down on the edge of the stage just as calm as he could be, restrung his fiddle, tuned it up, just with class and confidence. And the whole audience was like, wow, look at that, that's neat. Whereas if he'd have wigged out and freaked out, threw his fiddle
Screaming at
down
the
or
roadie or
whatever,
something. Yeah.
people would have gone, wow, this isn't cool. You know, because they feel what we feel when we're on stage, if we're doing it right.
Yeah.
You know, and the scary part about trying to write and being original is when you're trying to explain it to somebody. If you want a producer to cut a song or something, they can't. That's why there are demo tapes.
Yeah.
Because nobody can picture what you have pictured in your head.
Right.
You know, when we write, we see what we do. We write it in a vein of success. When I write stuff in my act or I project myself on onto the stage and try to figure the stuff out, I see it working, you know.
Yeah.
But when you get on stage and it doesn't, it can be very debilitating until you get that experience to where you go, okay, we'll try the next one.
Yeah.
So,
You just got to figure out how to keep it going.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty much
you
with
can't practice that without it happening.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. People ask me, do you practice your act in front of a mirror? I go, there's no such thing as practice unless you're under the duress that you're on, that you're under when you're on stage.
Well, we've talked about
the
that.
adrenaline's there.
Yeah, we've talked about that with comedians. Like, we write songs and play them and practice them, and we kind of get a feeling if it's kind of decent or not before. But you guys are kind of, it's like you go out on stage before the song's almost even written. You got a verse and a half a chorus, and you're working your way, you're writing the song in front of people. I assume you kind of do the same way. You go out and try out new stuff, and you're working on it. And
we would never do that.
That terrifies me, just going out and like, all right, well, I got this first bit of a verse and a half a chorus. How do you like this, boy? And he's like, I'm going to finish it off later, but I want to try out at least this part out on you guys.
We would never do that.
That's just a bizarre mental thing to me. Like, you guys are out there not winging it, but you're literally writing as you're doing it until you get it set.
Yeah, and you hardly ever write a bit that is word for word the way it came to you in the same way it's going to end up on stage.
Right.
You know, and the only way to learn that is trial and error on stage while you're wigging and not letting them know, and you're trying to judge their reaction to every freaking word out of your mouth, and you're trying to stay not a slave to your material, not stick to a script, you know, but so that's kind of one of the challenges that goes on there. So
how do you deal with people who yell things back at you negative? Do people yell positive things, negative things?
I'm very lucky this day and age that I don't get heckled often, and my definition of heckling is when someone says or yells something negative. You know, I always have people yelling and saying stuff because I try to act like I'm their friend and I'm having a conversation.
Yeah.
And they're my buddy.
Yeah.
You know, I try to put people at ease. So I don't get heckled. I try to make people laugh close enough together and strong enough that they don't even have time to heckle. Back when they would let people smoke in the showrooms, I would make it a goal of mine that if I saw somebody pull out a cigarette in their lighter, I would try to see how long I could keep them from lighting their cigarette.
Oh,
they'd
funny.
bring it up and they'd like, well, they couldn't light it. Then when they'd get, I tried to do that, and I would literally try to see how long I could make them delay it because they couldn't stop laughing enough to do that.
That's the stuff
So,
crowds would never know about. You're just up there entertaining yourself as you're doing it too.
Yeah. So, so many little nuances like that. It is such a great art form. I so love doing it. And I'm like so many other performers who have been around for decade after decade after decade. I totally wish I had conducted myself with the integrity that I have now back in old-timey days.
Well,
everybody. A lot of us walk on stage as a wild child, and it's a party, and you don't really have the. I didn't have the character that I wish that I have now that I wish I had then.
So what was it like in Nashville way back then? I know we talked. There was a lot.
82?
Yeah,
Is that what it was?
It was amazing.
I mean, I lived here, but what was the comedy scene like? I know Zanies has been around forever.
Right,
but
right.
Did you work the road like regionally around from here, or did you just stick in Nashville and you landed a lot of TV shows?
I worked everywhere.
Yeah.
Zanies brought me to town and managed me.
Oh, really?
For a while, and I worked coast to coast, and that was a cool thing for a little kid from Mississippi to go to Seattle, Washington, and Chicago and Indianapolis and learn that people are the same everywhere.
Yeah.
That is the truth.
because I kind of worried about that as they were booking me. I'm like, well, man, what do people in Seattle do? And I learned pretty quickly we all have the same life. Everybody has the same struggles. They've got a boss that's mean to them, or they have a boss they love. They have a job that they're hanging on to. They'd rather do something else, or whatever. They all see the same movies, the same TV shows. So the difference is it's the accent. Different foods, a little bit of cultural differences, but in the overall thing, funny is funny and truth is truth. When that was a neat thing to have my eyes open to when I would go out and tour.
So did they relate to your Southern perspective on things?
Oh yeah. It took them 90 seconds to get past the accent, but once they found that I actually had substance in what I was saying and was given and was trying hard and had put the time in, well, they were fans.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we have to do as performers, man. We can't call it in because people know that, especially in Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
Like we said a little while ago, all the talent here, you can drive 15 minutes in any direction and you can see a performer of whatever genre that's going to be world class or good enough
Star
to be
quality,
world on.
yeah.
Correct. I mean, this town is full of it, and that's one of the things that I loved about being in Nashville for all those years and working out of Nashville is that audience knows between Shinola and the other stuff.
Yeah.
That is so
They're exposed
true,
to
man.
greatness all the time.
Correct.
Most of your Nashville audiences are performers
A
themselves.
lot. Yeah, a lot, man. Steve Cropper,
Yeah.
Steve
Oh,
used to
yeah.
come to my show all the time, and I would be just so smitten that the people would come out. And as I got more experienced and more under my belt, I realized performers love seeing other performers do well.
Oh, yeah.
We absolutely love it. I went through a part when I was less mature where I was jealous of the other comics that were ahead of me and all like that, but that changes. Your perspective changes and you learn that, wait a minute, everybody out here is worthy. These
There's room for everyone.
Yeah, and the struggle, and you have to respect it. Even if so and so is not my cup of tea, I know the struggle and I know what it takes to stay in this business. So I give respect.
But to your point, you don't have. Everybody's the same way as a youngster starting whatever thing. You get a little jealous of the people that are ahead of you. But to your point, you have to have experience to realize there's a struggle involved. You know what I mean?
Correct.
You have to go through your own struggle before you can go, all right, well, people are like, why not me? And it's like, well, why me? A lot of it is luck. And that's the thing about both of these, music and comedy, I would think. You can work your ass off and do everything as hard as you can and be really good, but you have to also accept it. Well, maybe this won't work. You just have to be able to go into that because there is a little bit of luck involved in getting in front of the right people in the business. You know what I mean?
Correct. I know. And it could be as simple as that's not the right look.
Yeah.
You could be the most talented person in the world. Yeah, that's not the look. That's not what we're looking for.
You got a guy with a Southern accent already. Move along.
Correct.
Dumb stuff like that.
We've got Foxworthy already.
Yeah.
You know, who by the way is a dear friend and a great comic. But you have to learn that through maturity, and then you have to stop looking out there at those people, and you got to stop and turn around and go, "Wow, look what I've been able to do. Look where God has given me the grace to do."
Right.
You know, I mean,
look at your own situation.
That's a big deal when you finally stop and realize how blessed and that you have lived a dream. You know, the dream's not to be the greatest comedian ever. The dream is to make a great living and love what I'm doing and to bring joy to people.
To be a comedian.
A working comedian.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got to look at the perspective and see how much we have been able to accomplish and be aware of all the people who wish they could do that.
Yeah.
You know,
you've been you've spoken a lot about being really grateful to God for for your life and your talent. And when you were telling the story about being a toddler, I got goosebumps. I was wondering, was there a certain time that you found God, or was this always?
Well, as a teenager in school, you know, we would all go on retreats with the church, you know, and give our life to Jesus, you know, and want to do better. And then, like so many people, I faded away, you know. I was caught up in the ways of the world, this and that and this and that. And I'm so glad you asked me this question, you know. So COVID came along. Everybody was off to it. We were all nothing to do, you know, lamenting over it, wigging over it, you know. And so 2021 came around. The second week of January 2021, my wife and I joined a new church down in Mobile, a biker church called the Cave Ministries. And it is people who have fallen out of grace to the bottom in their life, ex-addicts, ex-homeless people who decided they would give it to God and rebuild, and they've become successful. So we walked into this church one day. Our son found it, begged us to come there. We walked into this church, and instead of the atmosphere where you go sit down and be quiet and listen, we walked into the church and people approached us and hugged us. "Hey, I'm so-and-so, welcome home." That was the words they said. So, and they worship hard, man. The worship band's like a classic rock band, you know, and the sermons are real life, you know, here's how I climbed out of that hole and did it. And so that moved us, my wife and I, so much. We're like, man, we got to go back. We got to go back. So we went back the next week. And, you know, we left there that first time, we knew people's names. The big giant Methodist church we were going through in Mobile, nobody introduced themselves. Nobody, you know.
It's almost like going to school.
We were just,
you just show up and go to your class and you go home.
So we went back again and we're like, this is great. And they go, hey, on Tuesday nights we have this class where, you know, we study the Bible. We study how to apply in your life the gospel. So we started going to those classes. Now, January 29th, I was diagnosed with COVID. A mild case of it, was out for about 2 weeks, you know, antibiotics and stuff. Worst part of that was having no sense of taste or smell.
Oh, yeah.
For several weeks.
Have you gotten it back?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that was a drag because we needed comfort food. And you couldn't even taste it. Like, what a bummer. So, anyway, fast forward to March the 1st, I went into the hospital having a heart attack.
Oh.
Okay. 40 years of touring, eating road food.
Yeah.
Okay, one of my arteries was 100% blocked. So we go into
What's your favorite road food? Side note.
Oh man, chili dogs, cheese dogs, you name it. Name another one. That.
Yeah.
Think up one. That.
Gotcha.
So because as a performer you get self-indulgence, you think you have earned the right to not eat healthy or to whatever. But anyway, so I go in the hospital and they are going to do a heart cath. They're going to run this stuff up into my heart to see what all is wrong. And by the way, it took 25 days to get my heart fixed.
Okay.
The blood vessels that were involved were the exact size of their smallest stent, and they were afraid they were going to tear those vessels. So they sent me home to exercise, wanted me to do walking. I was taking vasodilators and, nitroglycerin, the stuff people take when they're having heart attacks. They had me taking time-released nitroglycerin twice a day with the instructions, get out and walk. We've got to get those blood vessels bigger so that we can fix you. So I was afraid to walk in the neighborhood because I didn't want to keel over in somebody's flower bed and nobody knows. So I had to walk in our backyard, round and round and round and round. That way, if I had an issue, my wife could pull the car into the backyard and load me up and take me. So during these 25 days, I would feel the heart attacks coming on. I could take a shower and brush my teeth and it would bring a heart attack on.
Wow.
And so I ate copious amounts of the little bitty emergency nitroglycerin pills, like you see in the movies. Somebody's having a hard time. They stuff
Put
the
it under
little
the tongue,
pills in
Henry,
there.
on Golden Pond.
Exactly that. So during the course of these 25 days, I had between 15 and 20 episodes where I had to take that emergency nitroglycerin on top of the time released. And
were you freaking out at this point?
I was freaking out, and I was in denial that I might die.
Yeah.
My biggest fear was that I didn't want to be debilitated like that, because I would just had to shuffle around. I could do nothing. We've all seen people who have been in that condition, and I was like, man, I don't want to be like that. So the important part of the story, I'm in the catheter lab, which is where they're fixing to run all that stuff up, these wires and things into my heart to look at it, and I'm wigging. I am panicked. I'm like so much anxiety, and I'm laying there on the stretcher praying, God, please help me with this fear. I'm absolutely wigging. Please help me. Please alleviate this fear. I'm praying. Nothing's working. I'm in this little chute getting ready for it to be my turn, and they roll a stretcher in on the other side of a curtain next to me, 3 feet away from me, a little cloth curtain in the way. And the nurse is asking this lady, the little old lady, these medical questions, getting ready for a procedure, and I can hear them. They're right beside me, and every answer she had to the questions proved that her life was more and more of a train wreck. Do you have somebody do you have a phone number for somebody we can go? Well, no, I didn't know I could do that. My phone's in the thing, nobody told me. Well, it says here to call, so no, don't call that person. And like on and on. Have you ever had so-and-so arterial disease? Yes, I have. And I'm like, wow. And get this. I heard this going on, and I prayed for that lady. And when I prayed for her, my fear subsided. So I experienced the miracle of praying for a stranger, and I received the blessing.
Yeah.
So that, along with this new church we're at that is just real, kick-started my new life as a believing,
In that higher
teaching
power.
Christian.
Yeah.
So, and this will be my first time back on stage at Zanies in over a year before this transformation has taken place in my life. and I cannot wait to see them look at me when I walk on that stage full of joy. You know,
Has it changed your act much?
yeah, it's not quite as blue. The material isn't. I have more respect now for everybody. It's not about me. You know, as a performer, that's a tough lesson to learn because it's all about promoting. It has been all about promoting Killer Beaz for decades. And now that's not the top of the list anymore. So I have so much more joy now, and I wake up happy every day.
Yeah.
You know, I went through years waking up going, crap, it's another day. You know, worn out from the excesses of the road.
The road
you
will
know.
just beat you down.
Yeah, and there's enablers. All the venues where I was the cash cow, they would either facilitate or turn a blind eye. You know, don't piss him off, man. We make too much money with him. So anyway, my outlook and enjoyment of life is 1,000,000 times greater than it was. 1,000,000 times. I'm so motivated now to share the joy I have with people.
Yeah.
So, and it's so cool because my wordsmithing skills that I've learned over all these years of doing stand-up and preparing to speak to people on stage serves me in that. I'm able to articulate to people how they can be helped and how they can look for help from God. So it's been a really, really, and it's affected my entire family. You know, my entire family has a whole new lease on life.
So would you say if somebody's feeling really depressed or scared, anxious, they should pray for someone else to receive peace? That's
the way it worked for me.
Yeah.
That is absolutely the way. And we've got to not focus on us.
right.
You know, if we've got faith, God's going to take care of us. We're good. You know, I have so much less stage fright now. You know, I was debilitated with stage fright my entire career.
Really?
Which
After
led,
all of these years of doing it,
after
you
all
never
of these
crossed that
years,
bridge at any
man.
point.
No, that's what led to more drinking before I went on stage, drinking on stage, burn one. I went 20 years where I never did a show without burning one in the parking lot first. And so now I have stepped so much higher than that. And, you know, I still get butterflies, you know, my adrenaline's up because I'm fixing
Well, that's why you do it
'cause
for
I'm
those
fixing to
butterflies,
go out
yeah.
there and crush, you know. But it's a whole different ball game now. And so for people, and people need to hear us say this. I'm glad you said that. People who are struggling, there is the answer out there. We still have to go through the struggle. God does not want to take us out of the struggle. He wants to transform us with that struggle. So faith is a big thing. Faith is a big thing. And so there's help out there, y'all. There is help there, you know. Hit me up on Facebook, Killer Beaz Comedy, Beaz. Ask me a question. I don't have all the answers. I'm new to this, but I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it, and I'm all over it.
Studying.
And I have ways to articulate what might help you. So, you know, and just everything's better when you don't try to freaking do it yourself. Because we're fallible.
That's hard for a lot of us to give up.
It is
I
hard
come
for
from
a
a
lot
family
of
of
us.
I don't need any help. I don't need any help. Yeah.
Right.
Suck it up.
Right. So that's not a failure. That's a success. That's where the courage is. Do that. Trust and believe. So
Well, let's dip back into some of the struggle years here. Like I was.
would you like to? Who struggled with you? Anybody we know?
You can
Because
name names or anybody, but it's interesting because you say you started in '82. I remember like right around like '86, '87, '88. There was a comedy boom going on. There was all kinds of comedy clubs opening up, people going around. What was that like? I mean, you had just kind of started. Did you kind of look up and go, "Wow, there is a lot of Like, how did you ride that boom?
I
'Cause you
felt like I hit the jackpot.
had to.
Yeah.
I felt like I hit the jackpot. It was part of it was it gave me so much self-confidence and so much validation because I have been funny since I was a little baby. I had a 5th grade teacher tell me one time, "Truett Jr., it's not polite to be funny." And that devastated me.
That teacher needs to be smacked.
And that devastated
She's dead now,
me.
probably.
You know, but that wore off.
Right.
You know, but it just is ingrained in me. That's my personality, you know. I want people to smile and be happy. And I
Yeah.
think it goes all the way back to being around grieving
Sad people, yeah.
You know, every day when I was a little kid growing up. But
Did you get into the family business at all when you were a kid, like out of the funeral stuff? Or did you just...
At one point in time in Jackson, Mississippi, I worked in a 911 ambulance owned by a funeral home.
Oh.
So
So you were the front gates to the funeral home at that ambulance.
I was the
the
youngest
gatekeeper.
person in the state of Mississippi to ever have that job. I was 17 years old,
Wow.
Okay.
a senior in high school, and ran emergency ambulance calls every other night and every other weekend. They
That's
waived
heavy for a 17.
They waived the tardy rule at school because I would be there late because I wouldn't get off work till 7 in the morning. And if I was on a call, I didn't get off work till we got everything done and got back. So I had an English teacher that would have me come up to the front of the class and tell my fellow students why I was late that day. And at the time, to me, it was like, man, I'm a rock star. Cause I'd get up, I'd tell them all these great
And this guy, there's a motorcycle
this
wreck, he's
happened,
bleeding
and
from
then
his
the thing
head.
blew up, and it was, you know. But to look back on it, that was so insightful for that teacher to have me verbalize what I had been through, because there aren't many happy or funny things that go on when you work in the 911 ambulance. And so,
Keep talking.
and so that was cool that I would get to get that off my chest. And all these years later, I realized how therapeutic that was, that this teacher would have me come up and do that. So
I didn't even think about that. So all that stuff didn't stay buried up in your head, like
Right.
because you had to see some pretty gnarly stuff.
Oh,
doing
it was
that.
it was terrifying.
But to get up and
heavy
be able to
stuff.
talk about it to your peers, to a bunch of young kids, you know, at the same time,
Yeah.
it's almost like therapy and just kind of getting it out and not shoving it down in there where it
Yeah,
comes screaming
yeah,
back later.
So and it got me in front of people.
Were you telling jokes about it too?
No, I was not, because I wasn't. I was just telling
What happened?
what happened. What happened? You know, I suspect I told it in an interesting way.
Yeah.
You know, I was an avid reader going up, and I love the O. Henry trick ending to any story
Yeah.
I do.
Right.
You know, so I suspect that it was she had me do it constantly. So I did it. I didn't learn it.
Yeah.
You know,
She
but
enjoyed
I had a very intense upbringing. I was a competition pistol shooter starting at the age of 10.
What?
Times have
I
changed.
shot 38 revolvers in competitions until I was 18. My dad was in charge of the Jackson, Mississippi police pistol team. My mother was a national pistol shooting champion.
Wow.
And so
Remember when everybody had guns and it was just like having a fork or a knife around the house?
Oh,
Like,
look at this one.
Yeah.
So
I remember shooting like 4th, 5th grade and 4-H. You'd go out.
oh,
And,
you could take them to school. This
Yeah.
is my new shotgun I got, you know.
Yeah.
But so I've had a pretty intense life growing up. So back to the question about the funeral business.
Yeah.
This ambulance service was owned by a funeral home. So sometimes I was stationed there. Sometimes I was stationed at an apartment on the far end of town so that we could serve each end of the town. We had more than one crew. But I learned to embalm. I was an apprentice embalmer. I've done incisions and raised arteries and ligated, meaning to tie off arteries.
Oh my God.
Sutures. I've done sutures. I've done
and you were getting them coming and going on
who
that.
knows?
The front door and the
people-
back door.
Oh, and that was always the thing. Well, you're cutting out the middleman, aren't you? So,
One stop
but it
shop.
was my partner was 18, I was 17. We were the young guns. And we were, imagine me at 17, as silly as I am. Imagine that, me showing up. I mean, we were good. We were rock and roll. We would run into the fray, you know. We didn't know any better. But it was an amazing thing. And some of the stuff, I guess, was kind of funny to relate to. We were little. You see me now, I'm not a big old guy now.
Yeah.
But we were little guys, and we would get patients sometimes that were huge people.
Right.
And I'd be like, oh, sir, what do you weigh? 389 pounds. That is amazing. Let me ask you this. Can you crawl over to that ambulance and get in it? I mean,
Little help over here.
But you learn the consequences of actions.
Right.
You learn that. You see what happens when people don't wear their seatbelts. You see what happens when people drink and drive. You see what happens when people push the edge knowing they shouldn't. So that was kind of a lesson in doing that. But it was a cool gig. I wouldn't want to do it now.
No.
We went on a call one time where
No offense, but it doesn't sound like a cool gig at all to me. That would freak
Well,
me out.
back
As a
then,
17-year-old, though, whew,
Well, yeah.
I was busy chasing girls around trying to do that. And I can imagine tying off arteries and dealing, you know what I mean?
We went to a call one time to the ritzy part of town. Doctors, there were two physicians, married husband, wife physicians. One of them's older father lived with them. And so we got a call in our ambulance because we had the defibrillation crash kit that the older gentleman had a heart attack. It was during a dinner party. Everybody there was in the medical field. So we drive up to this fancy neighborhood where all the big mansions were, and these people knew the drill. They had somebody standing out at the edge of the street with a flashlight so we didn't have to slowly read house numbers and all that. So we get our stretcher out, we put our little defib unit and our oxygen and all that, and we go down the hallway of this big giant house. And as we're going down this hallway, the lights dim and come back up. We're like, well, we looked at each other like, whoa, you see that, man? You know. And so we are rounding the corner into this big den, big vaulted ceilings and stuff, and the lights dim and come back up again. So we get around the corner, and they are in this kitchen area, and the patient is laying on the floor, and these people were trying to defibrillate him using a lamp cord. They pulled the cord out of a lamp, split the leads, wrapped them around spoons, and taped them to his chest, and were plugging it in and out of the wall socket, trying to get his heart to restart.
Does that work?
Which was, it did not, because, and I don't know amperages versus wattage, but the regular 110 feed that they have was not hard enough of a hit to compress those heart muscles and let them rebound back.
And that's should have got the dryer cord out or something.
Yeah. Now, if you ever have a heart attack,
right in the
do it
bottle.
by the air conditioner or the dryer.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what the defibrillation does. When your muscles get an electric shock, they contract. Mm-hmm. So you want enough of a shock in a short duration that it will contract real hard and then bounce back, and hoping that rebound will get it to start beating again. So that was the concept behind that. But that was one of the most brilliant, genius things that I had ever experienced in my life, was to see the state of mind they had and the way they would reach beyond book learning and do that.
Don't
was
you think that's generational a little
amazing.
bit? Because my grandparents, both my grandfathers were that way. You could make something out of it, and maybe it's just coming up through the depression or something where you don't have anything and you had to make do with whatever was around. I think it kind of wired their brains to not freak out and go, all right, here's the situation. This is what we have to work with. Let's get busy.
Right, and that skill these days, not as much of the population in this modern age have those skills, which is, and kind of a change of subject, which is why I love doing the show Moonshiners on Discovery Channel.
Let's talk about that.
Because these people who live in these rural areas can do anything. They can do anything. They can take what would be junk from somebody else and turn it into a working apparatus that helps make life easier. I mean, it is amazing the talent and the smarts that these people have. So Moonshiners. Season 11 starts October the 27th. They've switched us to Wednesday nights instead of Tuesdays. So season 11, season 6 for me. And I have a small role on the show. I only get a few episodes a season, but I play the character Killer Beaz, the comedian.
Oh.
Bingo.
I get to play that.
You're probably pretty good at
How
that.
did you get that?
Character on the show, and the way I
Were you the first choice for Killer Beaz, the comedian, or they have somebody else in mind?
I don't know who all auditioned.
Yeah, I was like, who auditioned?
You know.
We're hiring for Killer Beaz. We got Jim Jones and
I think Ron White tried.
Foxworthy, yeah.
Foxworthy, Ralphie when he was alive. So,
Right.
But anyway, the way it all transpired, I was doing a show in Bristol, Tennessee, and I got a hit on my Twitter feed. And it was from Digger Manus, one of the main characters on the show, who I had met a million years ago
Buying
at
moonshine?
the Gaylord Hotel. I was in an elevator, and the door opened. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. The door opened, and this guy in overalls rolls this luggage cart full of these cardboard boxes full of mason jars.
Okay.
And we looked at each other, and we looked down. I looked back at that guy. What is that? This and that. So anyway, so that's when we first met. So 20 plus years later, I'm in Bristol, and he goes, Beaz, man, it's Digger and Mark from Moonshiners. We're big fans of yours. Saw you 20 years ago at Zany's in Nashville. You're in our neck of the woods. Come see us. So my wife, by the way, manages me, does all my bookings. We call her corporate.
Okay.
That's her, okay. That's her.
That's cute.
That's been her name for many years now. So now all the people that knows go, what? Hey, is corporate around? Yeah, hang on.
That's
let's talk.
hilarious.
So we had driven up to Bristol all the way from Mobile and had to go through the Smoky Mountains to get there. And we were going to leave the next day and had to go right back by where they were. So I told her, I need to be on that show. And she immediately was like, you and Moonshine, that's all I need. But I'm pitching it, baby, I need to do that show. My demographics, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So she reluctantly, and she knew the deal, man. So we went by and met with them, hit it off. Digger, nickname, because his family used to be in the funeral business. So we had that already.
Okay.
Plus, we had crossed paths so many years ago that it was like, well, cool, man. So we hit it off with them, and they go, you need to come up and let us teach you to make moonshine. And in my head, I'm going, you need to get me on that show. But to my credit, I didn't say that. For once in my life, I was cool and adult, and I went, that'd be awesome. And I just kept my mouth shut. So we leave there, and we're driving home, and I'm pitching this to corporate. She's like, no, rolling her eyes. She can see the bottom of her hair, okay? So anyway, I'm going, man, I go, and she gets it. She's like, dang it, I cannot believe this. So we blocked out the entire month of June. June generally is a month that we don't do a lot of shows because you can't get people in off the lake or,
Yeah.
they're
nice
going
outside.
to the beach. Yeah. So she said, okay. So June comes around, I went up there. Okay, and they put me in this little cabin that they have that's up in the mountains on a trout stream. Runs right past the front porch. You can get out in the morning, throw a little bread, and the trout will come up and eat it.
Wow.
So while I was there, Digger and myself and a legendary moonshiner named J.B. Rader, who was the partner for several decades with a guy named Popcorn Sutton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this was Popcorn's right-hand man.
Mm-hmm.
And unbeknownst to me, Digger and Mark, his partner, worked for him when they were teenagers because they're big old country guys, and Popcorn Sutton was little, and they could carry as much in one trip walking through the woods to the still site as it would take Popcorn 4 or 5 trips to
Yeah,
do.
because they're not running pickup trucks up to those sites.
Yeah, right. So J.B. Rader and Digger got me out there, and we made 3 batches of moonshine. We did cranberry, peach, and I think apple was the other one. No, straight corn liquor. Corn liquor, cranberry, and peach. So during the course of this, and the still was back behind the cabin, and I was the only one there. They didn't live in the cabin. They lived in town. I would go out every day and stir the mash, and halfway through the process, I went and added more sugar, this and that. So they put me to work doing it. So during that month, they had cell service, and they were getting ready to start the new season of Moonshiners. This would be season number 6. So they're lobbying. Man, we want our buddy Killer Beaz to be on the show. He's great. And New York's balking at it. They go, well, why do we need a comedian? He's not a moonshiner, this and that. So we're all trying to scheme on my angle of attack. So while they're having these conversations, some of the production people are going, look, they're going, we don't have big money being spent on moonshine. People, a guy pulls up on a tractor, gets 2 gallons or something. We want to show big money deals. And that had me hatch an idea when I heard that. So I got home, and I called a friend of mine that I'd had for a few decades named Ed King, the guitar player
Skynyrd, right?
that wrote Incense and Peppermints for the Strawberry Alarm Clock when he was a teenager, and then later joined the Leonard Skynyrd Band, co-wrote Sweet Home Alabama. He's the guy you hear on that opening. That's my buddy Ed
He's done
King.
all right for himself.
Yes, sir. So he had done all these, all this stuff. He was very high profile, and the Skynyrd guys had kind of adopted me years back. I did a bunch of projects.
Didn't you do a song with them?
Did a song with them. Ed King and I co-wrote it. They were my band on a racing song that Sony Records put out, a compilation album. Hank Jr.'s on the album.
Wow.
The Skynyrd
What was that
guys
session
have a
like?
song. Dude, it was
Had you
crazy.
ever done any recording,
I played,
music recording up to that point?
I got to play Gary Rosington's 59 Les Paul named Bernice for sound check in the studio.
Wow.
All this stuff. I did all the lead guitar on the demo that we took to Sony that they said, okay, yeah, we'll do the song. When we recorded,
Dude, that had to be exciting,
I
man.
let the Skynyrd guys do the guitar
You guys
work.
go ahead
In
and take this one.
retrospect, I wish I would have.
Yeah, why not?
But anyway, so I called, and Ed and I had stayed in touch. He had come to Zany's several times. One time he was at Zany's, he and his wife, and Ed was on the front row, and he loved it when people did outrageous, ballsy stuff, whether it was the right thing to do or not. If you had enough gumption to get up and do it, and it was out there, he loved it. So we're watching the show. He's watching the show, so I introduce him. Hey, I just got to say hey to a buddy of mine named Ed King from Skynyrd. There's like big ovation. Wow. From the crowd, this and that, and he's rolling. So, dude, stop. I'm trying to have fun here. Dang it. So I get to the end of the set, and I'm plugging my T-shirts. I'm going to be back there. I've got these T-shirts for sale. If y'all come back there, Ed King will be with me. He'll sign anything you buy. And this guy's eyes got like that big, and his wife Sharon just busted out laughing. Wow. Like that. And he came back to the merch table and stood there all night long because they lined up.
Of course.
For autographs, and he signed every single thing. And after they told me, dude, I hate you, but that was great.
That's hilarious. Well,
he goes, that was great.
To be fair, once you introduced him, he was going to have to say hello to all those people anyway, because they already knew he's up front. He's got to pass them to get out.
Yeah. So fast forward, I'm trying to get on Moonshiners, and they're balking at it. And I'm like, what can I bring to the table? So I call Ed. Hey, buddy, hey, man, what are you doing? Beaz? I need your help. Anything. I go, it'll help my career. You name it, I'm in. I need you to buy $30,000 worth of illegal moonshine in your home on camera. He's like, let me call you back. So
let me talk to my corporate.
So and so we had to negotiate for a week or so, and I had to talk to his corporate. She is the gatekeeper, just like my wife is, and that was the real pucker factor there.
I would imagine
talking to Ed was easy because he got it, but I had to sell it to Sharon. So after this conversation, things are iffy. I'm like, oh my goodness. So a day later, I get this email from Sharon. Hey, Ed and I were talking about it, and I think this would be a good idea for y'all to think. And they had a scenario they were trying to cook up for the show, and I'm like, I'll be dang. And so I called them back, and they go, okay, I had to jump through certain hoops, but they agreed to do it. So I go back to Digger. I go, look, man, here's the deal. And he's like, you did what? I go, I got Ed King from Skynyrd. He'll agree to do it with me. He'll come on and be my purchaser. And so Digger sent a text to the executive producer up in New York, the same guy that every time he had called that guy or sent a text to him while had that month where they were teaching me, it'd be a couple of days before he'd get back to him. 10 seconds later, his phone rings. What's this about Skynyrd? Yeah, if you put Beaz on it, bring the Skynyrd guy. Done.
Yeah.
Just like that. So
Nice.
That's how I got on the show.
I love it.
And so
What a great, not scam, but what a great thought process to go through there. And what a cool guy to be able to go, yeah, we can make that work.
And we have remained friends up until his passing a couple of years ago. And he was really, really a good guy, and he actually helped me, and that got me on the show. And then they kind of liked me, so they've kept me around since then.
How'd you meet Skynyrd or the guys?
We were in the parking lot, me and corporate and our youngest son pulled up in the parking lot at a hotel in Birmingham, Alabama. I was gigging at the comedy club there, the Stardome.
What year? Roughly.
91,
Okay.
I think, around 91. And we were traveling with our baby with us. We had this conversion. Remember the vans? They had
I love the
high
conversion
top and
vans.
the little TV up and top.
Sometimes they had that little bubble window on the side.
Right. So, and it was packed to the gills because we're touring with a baby.
Yeah.
Strollers, playpens, a little cooler that you plug into the wall.
So corporate
for
was
baby
touring with you this whole time,
formula.
too.
Correct.
That's cool.
So the bellman comes out, and of course he's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe y'all have all this stuff. So they loaded one of the luggage carts up to the top in corporate, and little Truett, our oldest son, who's a toddler, go up with the bellman, and I'm staying by the van guard and stuff, getting ready for when they come back out. And so while I'm doing that, this nondescript white passenger van pulls up, and these long-haired guys get out, and people come out and start getting their luggage. So they're standing over there, and I'm standing over here. That's back when I had my big, long mullet and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of did the old head wave at them. They did the head wave at me. And one of them goes, hey, man. Oh, yeah. He goes, are you that comedian that's on TNN? And so now I've been recognized by somebody. So I gain about 10 pounds in my chest.
Let me go talk to these silly
So
hippies over here.
exactly, that's exactly
Go big time them a little bit.
Yeah, so I go strutting over there, man. I'm like, man, look at me. So I go, hey, man, I'm Killer Beaz. Oh, hey, dude, nice. We're fans. Well, good. I go, look, I'm doing shows this weekend at the Stardome. Y'all want to come out? And one of them goes, well, we have to play tonight. And so I go, where y'all playing? And somebody else goes, well, we're Leonard Skynyrd. And I'm like, all right. So I lost the 10 pounds back out of my chest.
Shoulders slump a
Got
little bit.
shorter again. So right about the time that happens, corporate and the baby and the bellman come walking back up, and one of the Skynyrd guys goes, a baby. And so I go, give him the baby. And she looked at me, she like, look, are you out here about to give him the baby? And so she's reading for a night, give him the baby. So they're passing him because they're on tour and their kids are little, and they're hugging, and I go, this is Leonard Skynyrd band. Is not. So then they start coming over and, hey, I'm Gary, I'm Leon, from Skynyrd. So they asked me, they go, do you have a video of your act? Because back then it was all VHS tape back then. They go, we've watched every movie we have. We're so sick of watching the same stuff, man. We know who you are. Do you have a video? And I go, I do not, but I do know there's a camera rig at the club I'm going to be at tonight. If it's working, I'll make a tape for you. Okay, cool. All right, so we all go our separate ways. At this point in time, I was wearing a cowhide sports coat on stage, bolo tie.
I remember back in the day.
And boots that were splotchy like Holstein cow with the hair still on them.
Oh my God.
And had my big mullet. Probably had just been permed even.
Oh, yeah.
So we go to go to work. We get on the elevator and we go down and the door opens, and right across the hall at the other elevator, that door opens, and it's the Skynyrd guys wearing their stage gear, and we both start laughing at each other. We're pointing, oh my gosh, look at us. So we'll walk out together and they go, dude, see if you can make a tape for us. Okay, yeah. So, and this is how God makes things happen for us. So we go to work, and lo and behold, the rig is working. They've got a tape there. So I'm doing my act and I stop in the middle of it and I tell people, look, we're recording. It's for the Leonard Skynyrd band. They've asked for a recording. Turn around and say hey to them. The whole audience turns around toward the camera. Yeah, and they're screaming and clapping, So I finish my set. They give me the tape. It's in my hand. We drive back to the hotel. We get out of the vehicle, and at that moment, the van I had seen them in earlier pulls up, the doors open, and they come rolling out of it 8 minutes after finishing Freebird.
Wow.
I mean, there's steam coming off of them, and I'm able to walk to their manager and go, here's that tape. And he goes, that's cool. So we go into the hotel, and we all get on the elevator together. Now, the comedy club has an incredibly great kitchen there, and the chef had made some beef vegetable soup, and they knew we were on the road, so they gave us this big container. They had like 2 or 3 gallons of this soup in it, because we would take this little, we would call it the kitchen bag. We'd have pots and pans in it because, we're touring way back then, and you're living on the road. So we get in this elevator, and we've got this bag of this potted thing, and one of the guys in Skynyrd goes, is that food? And Terry goes, yeah, we got beef vegetable soup. Y'all want some? Yes. So they came to our room, and we sat around and ate beef vegetable soup together and listened to a cassette tape of the final mix of maybe the last Rebel album. I would have to go back and look and see exactly which one that is. So had a great time, met them. They got the tape. So now, several months later, I'm in Nashville doing Zanies. And the receptionist at Zanies brings me a note. So this guy wants you to call him, Ed King Skynyrd. So I called Ed. He goes, look, dude. He goes, man. He goes, your tape is the most watched tape of the Southern rock circuit. We have given that tape and made copies to every Marshall Tucker,
38 Special, all those guys.
All those guys have this tape. Now they go, man, they go, we're in town rehearsing all week. It gave us the address to a rehearsal hall. Come out every day. Come see us. Won't you come hang with us? So we would go, Corporate and I, with the baby, sometimes would go and we would sit within 10 feet on a couch of them rehearsing the new set.
Right.
And so it was really cool. So then they would have me come out and do some gigs with them. I did 3 minutes on stage because at a rock concert, nobody wants to hear a comedian, but I did 3 minutes on stage at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway the night before the first ever Brickyard 400 NASCAR race.
Wow.
And it was me and then a band called Pride and Glory, which was Zach Wild's 3-piece power trio. Me, Zach Wild's band, 38 Special, Bad Company, Ted Nugent, and Skynyrd.
Oh my God.
And I got paid some thousands of dollars to just go up and go, y'all ready to party? Yeah, okay. Because nobody wanted an introduction. They just wanted the stage dark and then, however they do their particular opening. So I went back, got paid, and we sat on side field monitors and watched this show.
Yeah.
Man, I can't imagine the crowd that was there to see that one.
120,000 people.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
It was amazing.
Was it freaky walking out in front of that many people trying to do 3 minutes of comedy?
Yeah. Well, it took me 30 seconds to realize you're not doing comedy. in front of these people because I was savvy enough by then to know
You're the hype man at that point.
I'm the hype man at that point because they're smoking dope, they're showing their boobs, they're partying. They don't want to hear that. They're not going to
They're
listen.
not listening to any nuanced comedy at that point.
So I didn't put myself through it.
Sure.
So
Or them.
Yeah, or the word. So we were using 38 Specials tour bus as our landing area. That way we didn't have to go to those restrooms
Right.
and get in line with, So we're all sitting on 38 Specials bus and we're talking and Gary Washington's there and I go, we're talking guitars and stuff. And I've told Gary, I go, man, I'm going to have a Les Paul one day. And he turns to his guitar tech, Sparks. He goes, go get Beaz a Les Paul. And Sparks goes, I can't, you'll fire me. We don't have enough. So Dale Kranz Rosington, Dale Rosington, Gary's wife, said, no, what do you want? And I go, a Cherry Sunburst Les Paul custom? Okay. Give me your address. Okay. So some months later, whenever later, it showed
from
up at
Gibson.
the house, this beautiful Les Paul custom. And so remind me to tell you about this guitar story, but while we're at the concert, we're backstage at catering. And catering at that show was like steaks and stuff. It was big time catering. And Corporate and I are sitting at this table watching this girl, a real pretty girl, tall girl, had her tray and she was walking. And when people would see her, they'd split or they'd turn away from her and stuff like that. And we're like, man, bless her heart. So Corporate asked her, you want to come sit with us? Oh, yeah, thank you so much. So, stupid me, she sits down. I go, how come nobody will talk to you? She says, and I quote, Ted Nugent's my daddy. So all the roadies, everybody was afraid to even talk to her.
It's like the mob boss's daughter or something like
Correct,
that.
exactly, man. So we had a great meal sitting there talking to her. Anyway, fast forward back to Rosington gave me that guitar. A year later, we're coming to town to do Zanies again, and we stopped at a hotel outside of Birmingham, got out of town late. We're going to crash for the night. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. Made the cardinal sin. We didn't unload everything out of the van because we were just wore out.
Yeah.
The next morning, we get up, the windows busted out of it. Everything's gone. Everything but my gun. They didn't find it. Our clothes, my guitar, everything's gone. So we get to Zanies late because we have to stay for police report. I go on stage wearing what I've been wearing now for 2 days.
Yeah.
And did my show. The next morning, I have to do media. So I'm like on KDF or one of the stations
100,000 watt
back
mother.
then, right? And I'm telling them this story. Beaz, what's been going on? Oh, I'll tell you what's going on. And I'm ranting. I'm going, my stuff got stolen. Did my guitar from Rising, yada, yada, yada. The receptionist from the radio station comes in with a note. Beaz called Tim Boland Gibson Custom Shop. I called Tim Boland. Dude, come down here and see us. We heard about that guitar. So we drive over there. I walk in the door. They hand me a blue quilt top Les Paul Standard. Here, sign this telling us you'll bring it back. Okay. They walk me through the shop. Here's what we want to do a deal with you. We heard about that guitar. We don't like what happened to you. If you will take these little sheets of paper and at your shows for the next leg of your tour, get people to register for a free Les Paul, we'll build you one here in the custom shop. So I got so I did that. So they built me a new Les Paul ebony fretboard, compound radius fretboard, chambered body, no F holes, AAA top.
Lighter than usual.
Light, it sings, sustains for days. And during the process of bidding, they kind of get, Beaz, you want us to put your name on that guitar? Yeah. So I've got this Les Paul with Killer Beaz and Mother of Pearl.
On the fretboard?
On the fretboard
Wow.
that Gibson made and pretty much gifted to me.
Yeah.
So I've had that guitar now for 26 years.
Wow.
And it rings like a bell. I let people borrow it who are really good players so I can be reacquainted with how good the potential is for that guitar to sound.
Right.
But that
How many
was
guitars do you have?
I don't have many now. I only have like 6 or so. Now I had
That's a
12
lot
or
of guitars.
13.
That's like
one
that old
time.
line that's like, how many guitars do you need? Just one more.
Just one more, yeah. So, but I don't get to play a whole lot. I don't play out or anything. I had, by the way, for the longest time, the PV VTM 120 head that Gary Rosington had played in the Rosington Collins band.
I remember that band.
He actually gave me that guitar head, but it was just so big and giant you couldn't even turn it on.
Yeah.
You know, and then
you got to carry it yourself. You're leaving it in
Correct,
the house.
correct.
You need roadies for this.
And
You
then-
come with a roadie.
Yeah, and then corporate bought me a Rivera.
Oh,
amp,
yeah.
which is a very good amp. I had it for many, many, many years, but now I'm playing a Vox modeling amp.
Oh, okay.
Which has there's a tube involved in it. It's got a
Right.
tube in it. It's a 100-watt little amp, and really good. It's got a great Dumble setting,
Oh, wow.
a killer Dumble setting, man.
It's cheaper than a Dumble.
Correct. And so I just use that Dumble setting, and it's got a built-in tube screamer, but I stacked that with a Klon clone
Okay.
from GHS, a soul food Klon pedal.
Now we're talking.
So there's that.
I love it. Okay, so
Anytime I start talking guns or guitars, corporate's like, no, please stop.
okay, so listen, I'm gonna have to let you go because I'm getting a sign. But I need to ask
Getting a
you
sign
this.
from above.
I need to ask you when's the first time you remember hearing about my grandpa Willie Nelson?
When I was a kid, my dad loved country music. You know, I cannot put a date to
Yeah.
to when that was, man. I know a lot of comics that were guitar acts would sing. You picked a fine time to leave me loose wheel
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of loose seal.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but and for all the pot smokers, you know, back there we're like, yeah, Willie Nelson, whoop whoop. You know, so
Yeah.
but before you were born, maybe. I mean, way back in old timey days. You're what, 18?
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you
Well
so
done,
much.
man. Well done.
That's what I do.
Hey, we can't get out of here without getting corporate in a shot. Corporate, you have to come. Just sit in the chair. Everybody wants to see.
It's true. It's
Corporate's
true.
gorgeous.
She's
She
sitting
is.
outside of a camera zone, being here the whole time. We've been talking about her.
She's been doing this for about 20 minutes, y'all.
Oh, that's who's
That's not
wrapping
true.
it up?
That's not true. It hadn't been 20
Do I have
minutes.
to be somewhere?
Oh yeah,
Oh, I do have to be somewhere.
Thank you for doing this with us.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
man,
you.
thanks for
Thank you
coming
so
down.
much, man. This
This
is
was fun.
This has been a treat to me. It has been a
maybe,
treat.
Maybe
so.
you should play guitar on one of our songs on our next album.
Yeah,
Or we're
You
gonna
know
s-
what? I know three blues.
Corporate?
I know 3 blues notes at 2 different dots,
Well,
and I do good vibrato. I try to sound like Robin Trower vibrato, and I make great guitar face. I make it look so hard. I make it look so hard. So
we need all those things.
yeah.
and
smoke
if
and
you do a
mirrors, baby.
video, we'll bring
Yep.
the Killer Beaz Les Paul in there.
There we
Okay.
go. We're gonna do that. We're gonna.
Okay, I'm in.
I'll talk to
hook something up.
corporate. Yeah.
I'm in. We'll make that
Dude,
happen.
I'm glad you're still making comedy and doing that. It's great. I've heard your voice for all these years, and I think it's fantastic. You're still out there.
Well,
crushing it.
I am honored. I got to tell y'all. So thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.
Yay! All right. Sorry I froze up on you.
Killer Beaz is my favorite comedian.
I love that dude.
It was a lot of fun.
He's a really good dude.
He wants to come back. He didn't want to leave.
Oh, he's gonna play on some of our tracks, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get some talking.
And
anyway,
and videos. He said he'd do a music video.
that's true. So stay tuned for that at some point in the future.
Hey, rate, review, subscribe, join our Patreon, and enjoy your groceries.
I know your mom's name.
Don't be an asshole. And we freed Britney.